Right at it. Right at it. Oh, he's done it again. Just as he did at the John Deere for his first win.
Welcome to another production of the Go Get That podcast, episode 145. It's the Valspar Championship week. It's actually the 10-year anniversary of our man Jordan Spieth's triumph at the Copperhead course down in Palm Harbor, Florida. For our viewers that are not listening on YouTube, on Anchor, Spotify, whatever you may be listening to, Bob will not be joining us tonight as he specified in the players recap. Just me and Dan, but we promise to make it worth your while and deliver some eye-catching insight, thoughts, opinions, facts, and everything there is, or anything that you'd want to know about the Valspar Championship. As Jordan Spieth wraps up a 2-week stretch. Players, Valspar. It doesn't look like Houston's happening. Commitment deadline officially Friday. This is dropping Wednesday morning. That seems unlikely that the Houston Open will happen, but regardless, a big week this week.
Yes, massive week. I think just in terms of getting back on the right track, putting a green box up on Data Golf. I said a couple weeks ago that I think we'd be trending towards a yellow box on the Data Golf page this week. For those who are unfamiliar with the yellow box, it has been a while for Mr. Spieth, but if you go to the Scheffler page, you will see plenty of yellow boxes. I don't feel that great about it anymore. Last week was, as we discussed quite a bit in the players recap, it was not great, to say the least. Pretty scrappy golf. He scrapped for a good while, a decent sort of result, and then it all went to waste on kind of the last few holes Saturday and Sunday morning as well. So not really sure what to expect too much this week. I feel like we've been saying that a lot over the past couple of years, is like, well, we're not really sure what to expect out of it. We do have the tee times. The draw we had talked about late early is not great. Mr. Spieth has the late early draw this week, so we'll see how that makes an impact. I think sometimes these draws can be over anticipated kind of earlier in the week. I mean, even at the players, Mr. Spieth didn't have a great draw either. So that's kind of back-to-back weeks with one kind of wave getting an advantage, but we'll see. It'll be another good test of golf this week. The Copperhead course is it's a challenge, even if it's not playing super windy. It's usually pretty firm, plays fast, and it doesn't have to blow that hard down there to make it a tricky golf course. It's not super long, but that Florida wind hitting some balls into the teeth of it does not make it easy. And then, of course, that stretch down the end, that causes all sorts of issues. Number 16 comes to mind. I know you mentioned the win 10 years ago, but also the should have been 2 years ago, where there was a brutal water ball tied for the lead on 16, and then sort of a pretty poor effort on a short birdie putt on 17. But overall, good memories here. Excited that it's back on the schedule, and looking forward to hopefully kind of working our way into a good spot going into Saturday. I think is the best that we can ask for given the current state of the game, but also sort of the weather predicament here.
Yeah, you mentioned good memories. I think if you're a Spieth fan entering this week, that's probably the biggest thing you have to really fall back on are those memories. I mean, it's not just a win here, it's a T3 and 23 that, as you said, should have been a win. He's got 5 top 20s and 7 starts here. And that is even more impressive because this has been a full field event, and the signature events, less people in the field, it can sometimes be easier to get those high finishes because you're competing against less dudes. But yeah, I mean, that's probably, just being blunt, probably the thing you have to fall back on this week, if anything, to be positive. Um, what sucks is if we go back to Phoenix, and I mentioned this in the recap pod of the players, there was reason to be somewhat optimistic about Phoenix because he played really well Sunday at Pebble. This week, we have the exact opposite, where he played really poorly Sunday at the Players, and you're going in this week, and it's like, what is there to be optimistic in? But then again, I was texting Dan, I think yesterday, and it's like these are the weeks where he sometimes plays really well because he works really hard pre-tournament to get ready. I mean, let's go back to the RBC when he won in 22. He missed the cut at the Masters the week prior. I mean, missed the cut at the Masters, got to Hilton Head early that week. I think played Sunday of Masters week when the Masters was still being played, got to work, and lo and behold, he won that week. Didn't really deserve to win that week, but he played good golf regardless at the Heritage. These are the weeks with him where it just seems like, it could go well. I mean, I'm not sitting here, being very optimistic. The numbers are the numbers, folks. I know we talked in the recap about, some of the negativity that people don't like when we're negative. Uh, 2025, he's lost strokes on approach in 4 of 5. He's lost strokes putting in 3 of 5. Like, this is who he's been as a golfer, really, since, I mean, he had a consistent stretch in 23, a consistent stretch in 21, but I mentioned the word consistency, and Dan mentions it all the time. That's what he wrote on the whiteboard last year, Century Tournament of Champions. Like, he's inconsistent, and that's what we're still really chasing. And we got to start building up some consistency. And there's an opportunity this week, so I'll give him that. There's another opportunity to try and put a green box on the board and get some better ball striking numbers from the approach play.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that's like most exciting about this week is that it's a chance. There's not a whole lot in his game that's exciting other than I think you could fall back on the idea that he's putted well at a few places he typically puts well. And by well we mean like good enough to win well, not like well for the Spieth standards of late, which is like, oh, it was, gained a little bit. No, he's gained over, I think it was over a stroke in both of those events on the greens.
He putted
Um,
really well at both Phoenix and Cognizant, yeah.
and I think there's reason to think that we're closer to the consistency than Sawgrass might lead us to believe. That's a tough place to um, have to scrap around for 72 holes, and will kind of show you if you're not there. But I also think that there's uh, at some point it should find the mean a little bit, and maybe the mean was the result that we got on Sunday. But I also think that the result on Sunday was not trying to like come up with excuses for it or anything, but I think that's probably farther from where the game is at than um, as an indicator of where the game is at than the previous kind of 60 holes or excuse me 54 holes. So reason to think that hey maybe a decent approach week could happen. Drove it really well down the stretch at Sawgrass. That got I think kind of better as the week went on. Although obviously barring most of Sunday. Um, but that was something that improved. He chipped it really well. I know the first round was amazing around the greens, but and actually is most of his numbers, but I thought for the most part it wasn't the short game display was pretty solid. So uh see a bounce back with the putter, see some kind of meaning to the average with the irons, keep chipping it and driving it well, and there's your green box. But I think we're at the point now where we're getting pretty close to Augusta, and if we want to feel something that week, really feel the kind of adrenaline and the um, emotion of kind of playing in there and defend the crown from 10 years ago, then there needs to be some elite play this week. I think you could make the case that the driver um, is in that like good to great kind of category. Um, and I think there's you can make the case the short game's been good, and the putter when it's been good has been good to great, but it hasn't. Nothing's quite been outside that week in Phoenix elite. Um, and if they're all good to great, that adds up to elite. But I think that's not. It's a hard formula to rely on um, for creating eliteness. So it would be nice to see some sort of spark. And I mean, we love the numbers. I know Bob isn't as maybe as much of a numbers guy, but I think we're both pretty focused on putting together a week that represents relative to the field really good play. And that will lead to a result that represents the same thing. But frankly, like I would it's whatever it is that signs for some good stuff this week is I would take that in a heartbeat. Just give me a green approach box and maybe a green putting box, and I think I'd be quite happy with whatever result that is.
Yeah, no, we are definitely the numbers people. We are the two economics majors on this podcast. College graduates here. We like our numbers. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned the green boxes, and if you're a Spieth fan, another thing to draw back on is just how he's putted here. I mean, he was lost in all of the sauce on the greens at Sawgrass. The speed was bad. Him and Greller had no clue what they were reading out there. Um, I the thing with the stroke, I think when you're not confident in your reads, the stroke gets off.
Yeah,
So
100%.
yeah, it is what it like. I'm not let's put it like this. Jordan's played Valspar 7 times and he's gained putting 6 of the 7. That's something to be excited about. But yeah, I guess the problem is kind of what I've, been alluding to is like he's that course horse type of player where he only plays well where he's supposed to play well. He played well at Phoenix. He always plays well there. Um, and I like to say he plays well in Florida outside of Sawgrass, which includes Innisbrook this week, which is reason to think he'll play well this week. But yeah, I agree in box with the approach would be really nice. Um, the approach numbers are still really bad, and the problem with Jordan at the moment is he's and again the sample size is still really small, Dan. Like he's not played a lot. Um, I mean, he missed the cut at Genesis. Pebble was kind of like just a crapshoot because it's the first week back. Like the sample size is still relatively small compared to a guy like Michael Kim, who's in the field this week, who's played. I mean, he's played. This is event number 10 for him. So
Yeah.
it's like the sample size is still small, but just from what we've seen, it hasn't been great with either the putting or the approach. And those are the two most important things in golf. So it's tough to, play good golf when you combine those. You have 10, stroke skiing categories. And he's negative and what, 3 plus 4 is 7 of the 10 in the 5 events combined so far. So that's reason for concern. But he plays well here this week. So again, there's the optimism as well, trying to, look at both sides.
Yeah, and I think you kind of brought it up though, like over the past few years, he's played well where he's supposed to, and not played particularly well where he's had struggles in the past. And I think that's fair. Um, but I also think that there's reason to believe that, and I'm glad you brought up the sample size, that there's still some figuring out to do. And I texted you this kind of last night is like, I don't, I think it may have been, uh, to assume that the progress he was going to make was going to be linear, was probably a bit naive or just overly hopeful. Um, because I mean, we saw it at Pebble, right? It started out okay, and then the wrist locked up, and then you get to Sunday, and you're like, this dude just shot what, 79 at Pebble? Which is crazy that he's got two rounds. He's got a 78 and a 79 on his rounds this year. But I think that's part of what you said, which is just he's played 18 rounds total. And that's not even really include like there's no off season. He didn't play a whole lot in the off season. So I think there's still lots of room for growth in the playing golf category. I think we both hoped that Sawgrass was sharper coming off a week off. And I feel reasonably confident that it'll be sharper this week. Like I think there was a blueprint that was put in this offseason and kind of translated from Pebble to Phoenix, which we're not that far removed from, and we're not that far removed from the Cognizant, where things can tighten up a little bit. Um, and it's a good opportunity to do so at a place that he should feel like confident in his ability to navigate. It helps when you make putts. Like it just you just feel more confident that the game is coming to you a bit easier. Um, and I don't know. I think there's reason to feel like this could be a pretty decent week. And I know we use cautious optimism quite a bit on this podcast, like the idea that we have cautious optimism about how he's going to play. Um, and I think that's probably the best way to put it for me this week is there's not a whole lot of data to suggest that he's going to play particularly well. It's just more of a following the trend of improvement. It seems like he's kind of in line for or just the spot offers him a better spot to kind of work on a few things and hopefully put up a better result.
Yeah, he's in this good week, bad week trend right now. Those T4 cut T9
Trend,
59, and then you would think
yeah.
this week will be
But
a pop week.
he's
He's
due.
due.
It's a pop week. I mean, we're
It could
already
be.
getting to that point. But so you mentioned the putter. It looked at Sawgrass to me like there was some putts that weren't being released fully. And that's just not trusting the line, not trusting what you've seen. So I think to your point, and this is why putting in general is the most volatile kind of stat week to week, is like just certain greens make certain, players feel more comfortable on them or they don't. And so I think that we'll probably see a bounce back in that category. My concern though, um, and we touched on it briefly with this draw, with kind of the late early getting the wind late on Thursday, that's gonna kind of stay into Friday morning, and then it'll kind of calm down Friday afternoon. Uh, is that I think part of what made Sawgrass hard was that there's a lot of external factors. There's a lot to kind of take in at that golf course. I think what made Phoenix so nice was that the weather was so great, and it was, there wasn't a whole lot of thinking about the wrist. There wasn't a whole lot of thinking about, um, you know, the 15, the kind of fluttering winds that are maybe swirling a little bit. How's this going to react kind of once it gets above the trees? It was just see target. Let's try and put a swing on it that hits the target. Um, and unfortunately, that the draw that he's got won't necessarily allow him to do a whole lot of that. And I think Valspar offers kind of a tricky challenge in that regard. Um, so that is kind of a concern for me. But I do think if he goes back to the little pre-shot routine, uh, that solves. Pretty sure that just solves all the problems, and he wins every major this year if that's the case. So, uh, we'll see. But we are still at a point, I think, where the amount of factors or things that make a golf course hard, if there's too many of them, I think it's overload, and that's disappointing. But I think that's just kind of, unfortunately, I think that's just where we're at right now. And I worry that this week could be a little bit of overload. Uh, but we'll see.
Yeah, no, I hopefully we get the three shot this week. I just think we've got to talked about that a lot in the recap, and even that just now it yields consistent or not consistent, but it yields I think more committed golf swings. In terms of the wave, I've actually kind of been thinking about it a little bit more. Um, I think it provides an opportunity, and look, it sucks because I mean we're recording this Tuesday night. He was 35 to 1 at about noon on FanDuel Sportsbook, and he was 60 to 1 when tee times came out because of the wave.
Yeah.
I mean, it sucks. He's going to have to play better golf than the people that are probably an early wave to, put himself in a spot this weekend to contend. But at the same time, like the most important golf tournaments we play every year are major championships, and they're always hard. I think it gives him another opportunity to play in, some hard conditions. I mean, granted, at majors, the difficulty is just the toughness of the golf course, maybe not always wind. It's just the more of the conditions. But I mean, he hopefully can, look back at last week. It's going to be pretty similar, I would think. Maybe not. I mean, there's water and play on 9 holes this week compared to 17 last week, and he found the water 5 times last week at the Players. But I hope he goes in with the mindset that it's an opportunity to play in some tough weather. Um, because the first 3 days at the Players, they weren't good, but he held it together. Um, Sunday, obviously a shame, as we've kind of documented over and over, but it is what it is. I mean, there's 155 guys in the field this week, and half of them are going to be playing in the crappier wave, and he's one of them. You gotta, what's the saying? You got the ingredients, and you gotta make do with them, and that's the situation he's in.
Lemonade.
And yeah, exactly. You got lemons, make lemonade, and he's got one start after this. So cherish these rounds because they're the last tournament rounds we're going to play this week in Valero before the second week of April.
Yeah. No, it's come up quick. And we did get that commitment to the Oaks course in San Antonio earlier today as well. So uh that's cool and unsurprising, all kind of in the same sentence, or in the same uh frame there. But Valspar it's a fun week. It's a tough golf course, as you said, which you talked about after the Cognizant, about wanting to play places that challenge him, but I think also just more importantly wanting to play competitive golf more leading into the stretch of large tournaments that are upcoming this summer. Um, and this will certainly be another one, another test here. And we mentioned the weather a little bit, and I think it's kind of funny because we're either going to be, you know, he'll either be in a like a T kind of 25 spot and we'll be frustrated because he got the bad draw, and like, man, if he had the good draw he'd be whatever. Or he'll have missed the cut and it'll be like, oh well, you got the bad draw. Or it could be worse than that, I suppose. But um I there's a lot of kind of unknown about this week. I think it should play firmer than the Players, which I think helps. I'm not sure he's one for overly soft golf courses. Not that the Players wasn't didn't firm up kind of by the weekend, but um I think this will provide a challenge in ways that uh he's more enthused about, in some sense, more excited about, maybe has a more better mental edge in regards to it's going to be hard around the greens, and he feels like that fits his game better. So, um, but I mean, we could, go on and on about projecting like how this week is going to go, but I think ultimately it's kind of a wait and see, and that's sort of how it's been all year. Um, and it's another week to with two guaranteed and hopefully four opportunities to kind of figure something out and ideally put together four great days and go from there and see what that leads to. So, um, I mean, we talked pretty, in depth and for a while about where we think things are at, uh, kind of coming into this week. Do you have like I guess we kind of talked about some green boxes and stuff, but is there something that would make you feel very, um, I guess what would the result be that makes you feel more like encouraged or kind of puts the uh potential contention at Augusta sort of back on the map, so to speak? Is there one that's like that feels possibly
Yeah, I mean, he's got to
realistic,
get
or
it.
is it out of the realm of?
He's got to get it into gear this week. I mean, this week has to go half decently because I'm not going to, say going into Valero that if you got to do it for multiple events, I feel. If you could put together two in a row, I'd feel decent, I guess. But this week, yeah, there's definitely just things I want to improve off of last week. I mean, the speed on the greens last week was terrible. So that's one thing. I mean, he had a three putt every single day last week. That is careless.
Yeah.
Careless, careless, careless. You can't do that. It's just no, 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 no. So that, and then just the dispersion with the approach shots. Just it has to be on the earth.
Mhm.
We can't be pulling balls from the fairway from 170 out in the bushes. Just missing the right spot. Like, you're going to be playing in the wind. You ain't going to be hitting every single green, that's for sure. You got a great short game, which you showed last week. Just try and put yourself in doable spots. I mean, when I track all the time and we're, coming into a par five or he misses a par four, par three green, like I'm always looking like, how does this next shot look? So I guess course management as well, just putting yourself in spots that, are doable because you got one of the best short games in the world, let it work. But if you're short siding yourself, you're putting yourself in the water, that's finite. You can't come back from that, but you can come back from leaving yourself in the right spot. Um, so I think we're kind of on the same page. I mean, it's just tough when you're struggling putting and approach play. They're the two most important spots. So improvement in those in terms of speed on the greens, no three putts, and keeping the iron shots, the hybrids on the earth, and leaving yourself in better spots would be nice.
Yeah. Certainly seems like there's I mean, and the Copperhead course demands it being left in the right spot, and a lot of golf courses do, right? But especially out here, there's some slopes to these greens, and you can get short-sighted pretty quick out here. Um, it's because it's a fun track. For those who haven't watched a ton of it over the years, it certainly isn't a um bomb and gouge place. You gotta pick your spots, you gotta plot. And I think what's helpful too is that couple under every day is a really great week. Like this is not gonna get to 20. This probably won't get to 15 given the current weather. Um, I mean, obviously, who knows? Maybe a rainstorm comes in one night, softens it up. Doesn't look like it's gonna be that windy on the weekend, but if the sun's shining down on it all day, it's certainly gonna brown up, firm up. So, um, I don't know. I'm excited about the opportunity. Um, excited to just watch him play. Hopefully, it gives me something to watch on Saturday and Sunday. Um, but featured both Thursday, Friday for sure. Definitely got to be the marquee group. I didn't check that, but with Thomas and Phillips, who triumphed in
I've
was it
never seen
Puerto
him
Rico a
play,
few weeks
so
ago?
I'm excited
He's
to see what
he's a
he's got.
former YouTuber. Um,
I'm just now aware of that.
yeah, it's I didn't watch a ton of his videos, but didn't realize he was this good. And He'll be wearing the Sunday red outfits. So it's basically Spieth, Thomas, Woods, just in the form of Phillips, which, you know, I'm sure they could trick a few fans out there that Tiger's on the prowl. But should be a fun week. Do you have anything else or any
I
picks
have
or
one more.
plays?
Well, I have my picks and plays, and I have one more thought. Um, I forgot where I heard Jordan say this. Um, it's got to be on some YouTube video. I've seen them all, but he's said that life is too short to not go at flags. You and I bring that quote up because another ask I have is course management, which I kind of said probably 5 minutes ago, but just don't go at flags. I don't think he understands sometimes, like if you hit it to 30 feet and two putt and make a par, that is fine. I mean, he's going to play Thursday and probably Friday. I'm thinking 1 to 2 under will be a great score. If you have over
Yeah.
a wedge or a 9 iron, just find the green. Do not go at flags. He says it all the time about, tour flags if they're cutting these corners and all this BS. You don't have to go at them unless you have a perfect number, especially, he's not going to be close to 100% this week with his approach game. Just hit it to the fat part of the green and two putt. I mean,
Yeah.
there's probably going to be a very few amount of holes that play under par in this wind. Par is your friend. Do not go at pins, greens in regulation, and get out unscathed. There's
Well,
no need to go at flags.
yeah. And to your point, like that's kind of what it felt like he did at Phoenix
Yeah,
at the Honda, excuse me, the Cognizant. Um, like the approach numbers weren't, I guess in Phoenix they were solid, but ultimately, if you hit a bunch of greens, they're gonna be solid because you're not putting yourself in spots where you can
drop
um,
shots.
drop shots. And you make a few putts. I will say, he played the fives pretty well at Sawgrass for the most part. You get to the weekend, it got a little scrappy, but
He made a 7 and a 6.
he that is true. Sunday was Saturday and the last five fives were not played particularly well, but the previous 11 fives were played quite well. And Valspar has a few fives. You think of one, very gettable, 11, quite gettable. 14, I guess it depends on the wind. If it's downwind, it's gettable. But and then what's the other one? Six. That
6 is the
six
doozy, I believe.
six is a yeah, I would sign for
20.
yeah, I would sign for four fives at six.
6 plays over par, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's that six is quite a golf hole.
Or is it five?
The
Five,
or five, yes. You're right, because six is
par four.
yeah, yeah. Five is so yeah, 1, 5, 11, 14. Like play those in a couple under every day and kind of just hit middle of the greens and maybe make a putt. There's your 2, 3 under, right? Like and obviously it's way more simple to just say that, but to your point, that was what he did in uh at the Cognizant and in Phoenix. Um, so not that he maybe wasn't trying to do that at Sawgrass, but I think he's laid the formula to have a good week a few times this season. And I think hope that there's at least like something to draw from there. There's gotta be, you would think. So I'm hoping that to your point, we can get a little bit of that this week and uh maybe add a little magic with the short game and the putter, and then you're talking about some pretty serious contention. But these are all big ifs, obviously, considering what we just saw with the 78 on 48 hours ago. So, um, but we'll go from there. It's hard not to get excited about these tournaments and the opportunity to just find the game because it gave us a taste of it a couple times this season. So um, that was a good point you bring up.
I
I
try
think
and bring
too
up
though.
good points.
I think I think too. Just to kind of finish on that, sometimes I don't. I think he's trying to hit it 30 feet left, and it's just not there. The swing is just not there. So it goes, you know, overcuts it or whatever it might be. Um, but I do think that some better targets could be picked overall, and less stress could be placed on um, having to hit the center of the face uh, every single time with the iron. But we'll see. Find out Thursday afternoon where we're at. So
Yeah. There's nothing like a new opportunity. I mean, there's a reason we do this podcast. Every time he tees it up is just extremely exciting.
I mean, I texted you yesterday. I said I'm optimistic. Like you just can't quit it. You just can't quit it. But
No.
I know you have a couple plays. I don't have my plays in yet. I apologize to the people uh who so closely follow our plays, I'm sure.
But
Um,
for those that aren't listening in our triple double contest, there are each of us have we're it's $100 on the line per person.
yeah.
So it's I mean this is big time
There's
stuff here.
yeah. No, it is.
Um
We survived the players. We thought Bob had played McIlroy, which he very adamantly said he's like McIlroy is gonna win this week, and then he didn't play him.
we would have
And
been in big trouble.
yeah, we'd be a few million back with I guess the four majors left, but four of the
Plenty of
nine.
signatures too though. There's some signatures still
Yeah,
left.
but we've already gone through Pebble was signature, Torrey was signature, API was signature, the
Yeah.
players was a big one. Like there's probably only five left of that stature. So halfway through them and Bob's up 3 mil. It's not great,
No.
but thankfully Bob played. Who was the
He had
guy
the
he
worst week
played?
of the three.
Yeah, who was the guy he played instead of McIlroy?
He played B
Harmon,
Harmon.
$0. That I could have told him that was an awful play.
Dang. Didn't believe in the Bulldog.
He was very proud of the Bulldog. I apologize or had a little sneeze there. Um, but yeah, he was proud of the Bulldog, and the Bulldog went home on Friday evening. But
It wasn't close either, I don't think. I had the zero
no,
put in there with
I
I think
can't
3 holes
imagine
to
he
go.
was. If it was windy and Sawgrass, they beefed up the course, and he went B Harmon. It wasn't firm like that. I mean, hindsight's 2020. Felt like an interesting pick from the
Yeah.
get-go. But
Speaking of interesting.
yeah, I saw the two picks you have in there.
Yeah, and the third one you'll love.
Oh,
Um, to recap though, for last week, I had the best week, not to top myself. I had two of us. I mean, we all had a guy in common. So Bob and I both had Morikawa, um, which went pretty well, 656K. You and Bob had Fleetwood 418. You had Straka 418. I had Straka 418K, and I had Aaron Rye, who was my favorite play of the week, who had a good week.
yeah.
Um, he, he didn't have a. If you had him T20, you cashed. So, he had a good week. Current standings, you're up, Dan, 8.5 mil. Bob's at 7.9, and I'm at 6.9. So we're jockeying for position. There's no runaway here, which is good. Plenty of tournaments left, but as you said, we're already through a good portion. Um, and so with it not being a big week, I have went with three. It's a cast of characters, to put it bluntly, at the Valspar. Um, there are some big names playing this week, but I didn't feel like forcing it. And I mean, a couple of the big names I've already used twice. Lowry, Straka, JT, I can't use anymore. So And those are three of the biggest names playing this week. But I have a cast of characters here. So my first guy I'm going with Christian Bezadenhout. He
He's been playing well.
my well, yeah, I mean my model's not great. He's number one in my model. I think it's a great
Wow.
course fit for him. Yeah, great course fit. He just needs to gain on approach and he'll play well. He's lost in four straight, but I mean they've been pretty minuscule losses besides one of them. And yeah, he's played okay golf this year. I know the wow is crazy for number one in my model. That tells you the model's probably a little bit off, but he missed the
You
cut
never
last
know.
week, didn't putt well. T19 at the API, T4 at Phoenix. I mean, he's played just as good as Spieth has.
Is
Played a little bit more, but
was his is he's got an early tee time, I presume.
yeah, yeah. So everyone I went with is early tee time, which changed, I think, one pick. I was always going Zayden out, but he T9 here last year as well. So he's got some good course history. Great course fit. Second guy I'm going with is the guy Elise mentioned in the chat, our one of our group chats. Her mentioning him just got him a little bit more on my radar, and then I'm like, I think this is a good pick, and that's Jacob Bridgman. Um, Another guy. I rarely will ever go with anyone that isn't a good course fit in my mind. And of course, Rory won last week, and I don't think he's a good player's course fit, but of course he's too good. Course fit doesn't matter when you have a player that good. But Bridgman is a pretty good course fit, I think, and he's been playing some solid golf. He had a T2 at the Cognizant, T15 at the API, T50 last week, but the ball striking numbers have been green. So like him, missed the cut here last year, but it is what it is. And then the third pick, this is a funny one. I could have went Corey Connors, but he's in the PMAM wave, which I don't. He's probably going to play better than this guy that I did pick. But without ado, the third pick, I am going with senior citizen Matt Kuchar.
Wow.
I'm going with Cooch. He's
He's
had.
I was
Go
just
ahead.
gonna say he was on a leaderboard the other day though. Like I've seen his name a few
He's
times this year.
lurking, and this is a Kuchar course. He's got great course history. He's got a lot more green boxes than he doesn't here in his history. Um, he he's only played four times this year.
Wow.
So he's picking and choosing the Kuchar courses, and you look at where he's played, and they are all his type of courses. He's played Sony, he's played Amex, he's played the Cognizant, and he's played the Players. So yeah, I mean, Florida golf's all about hitting fairways, and that's kind of what he does. He doesn't hit it far. You don't need to hit it far here, but he hits fairways. And yeah, he's per my Data Golf official world golf ranking definition underrated.
Okay.
132nd in the Ogre. He's 77th in the Data Golf
Oh
rankings.
wow. Very
So
underrated.
yeah, why not? I think there's
Yeah.
worse places you can go. And as I was saying, I didn't feel like using. I can't use Straka. I didn't feel like going Connors just because I feel I could use him later down the road and he's in the bad wave. You do have Burns in the AM wave. I'm sure maybe Bob or yourself will consider Burns, but his ball striking has been brutal the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like it's been really bad. And he's a
He
great
hasn't.
course fit, obviously, but
Yeah. I was just gonna say, there's something too about not being in contention at the players. I think the past 3 years that they've had an average finish of 40, 42, 43, something
did
like
you,
that.
did you see
The
that
three
tweet that was in the group chat today, by the way?
the three winners. No, I'm not sure that I did. But they've all had like a top 10 here previously, or a top 10 previously in the season. Have played this course before. Like I think Bridgman's a great pick. I think Bez is a great pick. Like I think you've got three solid picks right there. Um, and it kind of feels, I mean, maybe it's just that kind of year, but it sort of feels like we're due for a winner like a Bridgman. I guess we had Highsmith a few weeks ago. Um, but that feels adequate for how the Florida swing is gonna go. So, but are you pulling up the tweet you mentioned or trying
Yeah,
to
I
find it?
trying to figure out who tweeted it, but it was kind of to your point. And this is awesome for Spieth. Like the average finish at the Players of the winner at the Valspar is like absurd. Like guys that don't play well at Players play well here all the time and win the golf tournament.
Yeah. I think
Uh,
they're pretty different golf courses. Like I'm gonna see and just the week before, like it's hard to compete there and then come here. So like it's actually I'm looking at it's pretty good. On Data Golf, the golf courses that are least like Innisbrook. Bethpage Black
you don't
is the
say.
least. Yeah. Do you have a guess what it? So that's 93rd. Do you have a guess what is 92nd?
Is it a major championship course?
It is not. 90 so we'll do 91st then. 91st is a major championship golf course.
Wingfoot?
Is not Winged Foot. It is Mr. St. Andrews,
Wow.
which
Okay.
is fascinating. But I think that's just like bomb and gouge. Like both Torrey Pines courses are back here.
Yeah.
Firestone Country Club is here. Harding Park, Whistling Straits, Congaree.
That's why I'm playing Matt Kuchar this week because we're not
Yeah,
playing those.
right. No, exactly. It's a big boy golf course. Um, I think I told you it earlier, but do you know the most similar course per day to golf?
TPC Twin Cities, wasn't it?
Yes, the Twin Cities. So that's also it's I think a Kuchar track, by the way. Um,
Look,
so that because wasn't he in contention there last year?
your guess is as good as mine.
Or maybe that
I
was
I
Vegas.
I do not watch that tournament, but yeah, he's played well at the 3M Open. He's got a T7 and a T12 and a T32. So
Yeah. Yeah, so that makes sense.
actually, that's Sam Burns. So
Oh,
let's
yeah,
take a
check
look
Kuchar.
though. He had a T3 last year. So yeah, you're
Okay.
right.
Yeah. So I think there's and then like the Seaside Golf Course, which is for the RSM. So you get that seems like a pretty good course comp actually as well. Um,
I've actually been proud of myself because I've done I'm in third place right now, but I'm happy that I'm not picking a lot of guys that miss cuts. Because
yeah.
it's funny because Bob has had a lot of guys that miss cuts, but he hit Ludwig at the Genesis for 4 million, and that's like all his total.
Yeah. We haven't hit
So,
a we haven't hit a winner in a minute.
I mean, since Genesis, it's been 4 events.
Well, I'm saying we.
Oh, you mean you and I?
Yeah, we went week 2, week 3, back to back.
We're cold.
And I think we're due. I
Well,
think we're
I'm
due.
probably not hitting one this week with the cast of characters that I
Well,
picked.
you never
So,
know. I mean, I think I feel pretty good about hitting and I'm playing Jay Spieth. So that's
are you playing Jordan?
I'm not. No.
Yeah,
This is I would be tempted to just for all the optimisms if he wasn't in the wave that he's in.
well, the hope is he's playing better later this year, and you could use him at other tracks.
Yeah, I mean he comes to mind at Ranch. Um,
He's 33rd in my model this week. So,
that's not too bad out of 150 guys.
well, that's one way to put it.
And he's a top quarter of the field.
Yeah, you kind of said it earlier. I don't think he's a good course fit this week, and you kind of mentioned it in the recap yesterday when we recorded. What's the course fit for a player that doesn't hit their irons well? Like,
It's not, it's
it's
St. Andrews, which is like the
yeah,
opposite of this golf course, quite literally per day to golf.
yeah.
Like it's it's
So
it's Bethpage. Uh, you know, I mean, well, I guess not Bethpage, but St. Andrews, like Kapalua, you
yeah,
know.
it's a good week to have a good week though, because I don't think we're on the ground floor. I think
No.
you say it all the time, and I think it's really well put that it's never as good as it seems, and it's never as bad as it seems. Um, unless you're like Scotty Scheffler. and it really
Or
is as
is
good as
as
it
good as it
seems,
seems. Yeah,
or your
exactly.
Max Homa, where it really feels
It's
about as
it's as
bad
bad
as
as it seems.
But
Yeah.
Jordan, I don't think he's. It's not as bad as it seems. I don't
No,
think right now
no.
because
Sawgrass got him in the end.
again, again,
Again, which is tough, but um I think I feel good about a few days of some work. Uh and it's great weather down there. The risk hopefully is not an issue. I know there were a few um kind of minor moments of consequence or pain, I suppose, at Sawgrass, but hopefully that's not an issue and we can go and have a good week and go hit some good iron shots. Um,
agreed.
and it's not like there weren't some darts last week at Sawgrass, but it would be nice to consistently hit some greens. I think that's what was missing from Sawgrass last week was there's a lot of missed greens. Um,
Yeah,
and every golf course requires that. Like we're just kind of joking about there's not really a course fit for bad iron play, but I think this golf course requires the patience to hit a bunch of greens. I would sign for 14 greens a day around here. I mean, that's great anywhere, but
yeah,
like if you did that around here, my God, like probably the top five at the very worst, unless you just can't make a putt. Um, but I think that'll bounce back this week too. So hopefully some good golf to be played. Sad again that I just cannot watch Thursday or Friday really, but actually I can watch the first few holes Friday because I'll wake up to it. But yeah, and I'll get my picks in here soon. So um, fun week ahead and Masters right around the corner. It's crazy. So big week uh, to get some really positive momentum going would be nice. And
yeah,
it's doable. It's doable.
yeah.
So
No, it wasn't as bad as we saw Sunday, and it's an opportunity.
chance to take advantage.
So
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add. So
no, that's all I
you
got.
don't,
Appreciate everyone
then
tuning in as always.
yeah. Well, this comes out, I guess, Wednesday morning. So we'll see you guys tomorrow on the social medias. Or if not, we'll see you on Sunday. Or I guess technically Monday morning. Or potentially Tuesday. We'll see how this week goes, I suppose.
Yeah,
But
with not playing next week, the recap might not be out till Tuesday morning or something
unless,
like
of
that.
course, it
We shall
is
see.
a great
Don't
thrust.
say it. Don't say it. Don't say it.
I didn't say it.
Don't jinx it.
I just
Don't
said a
jinx it.
great thrust.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So until then,
Peace. Take care.
peace.